Hello, in this lecture we will create and record journal entries for a government entity. These will be the government-wide journal entries. The information will be over here on the left-hand side. Last time we entered information up through G7, so take a look at that if you have not yet seen that. This is the information from last time. This time I'm going to hide this information and put the new data from G8 on down into the blue cells over here in columns N and O. So I'm going to highlight from I to M. I'm going to right click and hide that. That may already be done if you're working with a worksheet that has been provided. And just note then that the trial balance is over here on this side. We have the assets in green, liabilities in orange, the fund balance account light blue, and the temporary revenue type accounts that will be closed out in the dark blue. We've entered information here. Posting the journal entries that we had done prior have already been posted, giving us the beginning journal entry, the beginning trial balance, then the adjustments, and the ending trial balance as this point where we are at so far. Now we're going to continue posting to this middle column and continue to change these ending numbers. Note that we are in balance given by the fact that we have a green 0 down here, which means that debits minus credits equal 0. Going to scroll back over here to the data, and we are now going to be working on G8, next item, which says that we have interest and penalties received on delinquent taxes, estimated uncollectible amount. What we are going to do then is record the receivable at this point in time, and we will record the revenue related to the fact that we have this receivable now in an area that is collectible in terms of the governmental accounting. We will then move over here. We're looking for the receivable first. Let's record the debit first. It's going to be in the debit section, and we're looking for interest and penalties receivable. So obviously there's past due amounts. We've charged interest and penalties. Those are now receivable. So that's kind of a form of income for us, and it's creating a receivable. So receivables have a debit balance because they're assets. We're going to make it go up by doing the same thing to it, which in this case is another debit. So I'm going to right click, copy that, and paste it in O5, pasting 1, 2, 3. Then we will put the amount, and the amount will be this 4,400. And so we also have what is given in terms of the estimated amount that will be uncollectible. So we think that we have interest and penalties. Some of those will be uncollectible. We've already calculated the amount that we believe to be uncollectible, and we're going to record that at the time of posting the revenue. So we have here the allowance for this allowance for uncollectible interest and penalties. So we record the interest and penalties here, the assets, and then the contra asset account, meaning asset account with a credit balance, that will bring that amount down, bring the net amount down. So I'm going to copy that. We're going to put that in O6, right click, paste 1, 2, 3. Amount will be a credit, so it's in Q6. We're going to say credit with a negative. I'm going to make it a negative for credit, and that's going to be the 1,400. Then we're going to subtract those two outs. Debit minus the credit gives us 3,000. That's the plug. That's what we need here in order to make this journal entry work. I'm going to put the plug in there with our plug formula, which is negative sum, the negative sum with a negative in front of it rather than an equal sign. Highlighting those cells, there's the 3,000. If we highlight all cells, we can see we're at 0, meaning we are in balance. So then we have the general revenue, interest, and penalties. So I'm going to scroll back down here. We have general revenue, interest, and penalties. It's going to be a credit balance account because it's a revenue account. And we're going to make it go up by doing the same thing, which is another credit. So I'm going to copy that. We're going to put that here, and we already have it in the credit column. We're just going to post the account now. There is the account. So then we're going to move over here. We have interest and penalties. It's going to be recorded. We're going to record this item in the journal entry. We're going to record it to the trial balance in this account, and we're going to do it in Z10. So I'm going to double click on Z10, go to the end of it, plus, and then point to that 4,400. That's a debit. This is a debit. It's going to make this go up in the debit direction. Then we're looking for the allowance. So here's the allowance in the journal entry. Here's the allowance in the trial balance, and we're going to record this here in Z11 equals, pointing to this 1,400. This is a credit, that's a credit, those are the same things. It's going to make this 11,726 go up to 13,126. We then have the general revenues, interest, and penalties. That's going to be down here in the dark blue area. General revenues, interest, and penalties in X38. We're going to go over to the cell Z38 and say that that equals, and scroll up and point to that 3,000, and that will bring the 0 up to 3,000, put us back in balance here. That will put us back in balance here, and we can move on to the next item. So let's go back to our data, and I'm going to say that G8, we're going to highlight the information in G8, right-click, paste, not paste, we're going to right-click and make it green, indicating that it has been completed. Moving on to the next item, that item being G9, which says that we have project started, and the amount billed is 50,000. So we're going to start a new project. So in the government-wide fund, we're going to say that we have a contract in progress, or construction in progress in this case. So we've got construction in progress. It's an asset account, and it's going to go up, and asset accounts have debit balances. Therefore, we're going to do the same thing to it, which in this case will be another debit. So I'm going to copy that. We're going to put that in O9, right-clicking and pasting 1, 2, 3. The amount will be in P9 and equal to this 50,000. So there's the debit, and here is the credit, and we're going to enter that to the vouchers payable. The payable will be the credit. Payables are liabilities. Liabilities have credit balances. We're going to make it go up by doing the same thing to it, which in this case is another credit. So here's our transaction: debiting construction in progress, crediting vouchers payable. Here's construction in progress in the journal entry. Here it is on the trial balance. We're going to post it to Z20. Z20 will be equal to, scrolling up, this 50,000. Then we are going to post vouchers payable. Here's vouchers payable on the journal entry. Here it is on the trial balance. We're going to be posting to cell Z21. Something's in it. Therefore, I'm going to double click on it, go to the end of it, say plus, and point to this 50,000. This is a credit. That's a credit. Those are the same. Therefore, this amount is going to go up, and it should put us back in balance. So that's going to be that item. We're going to say it's in balance, by the way, indicated by the green zeros over here, meaning the debits minus the credits equal 0. Going to scroll back up to the data, and we're going to say that I9 has now been completed, right-clicking and making it green. We are now on, sorry, not I9, G9. We are now on G10, and G10 says that we have a bid accepted and awarded, and then we have a retaining percentage. So we have a bid that was accepted and rewarded. Now for the bid, there's actually going to be no entry for the government-wide transactions. There would be an entry for the projects fund. So we had the projects funds prior. When we had the bid and was accepted, we had the transaction would be recorded in the projects funds. Government fund, we're going to say none, no transaction here. Therefore, we're going to highlight the G10 area and make it green and move to the next item, which will be G11. So G11 is the next one, and that's going to be the sale of bonds. So we have the sale of bonds, we've got the cash deposited, the percentage, the accrued interest, the premium, and the face amount given. First thing we could say is that cash is affected. So we're going to say, is cash affected? Yes, we're going to issue bonds and receive cash. We can see that cash, of course, has a debit balance. We're going to make it go up by doing the same thing to it, which in this case is another debit. So we're going to copy the cash, put it on top in O14, right-click, paste 1, 2, 3. The amount's going to be, they gave us the amount in this case for the deposit, so that's going to be the 828,000. We can also see how we would get that number by looking at the rest of the components. We are going to issue the bond for the face amount on the bond, what's on the face amount, which is going to be different to the cash received because of differences in the percentages return on the bond versus market value. So we're going to say the face amount of the bond is the 800. That's what we're going to have to pay at the end of the bond term. Therefore, it's going to be a liability. We're going to have to make it go, we're going to make the liability account go up. So we're looking for a liability account for the bond. We have deferred serial bonds here. It's in the orange area because it's a liability. A liability is having a credit balance, so we're going to make it go up by doing the same thing to it, which in this case is another credit. So we're going to copy that. We're going to put it on the bottom in 015, right click, paste 1, 2, 3. The amount is going to be for that 800,000. So we are in Q15 crediting this 800,000. Next item, we got the premium. So the difference here, of course, is going to need to be recorded somewhere. And we have the premium here. So the premium is going to be a result of the difference in interest rates. And therefore, we can look for the premium account. It's going to be related to the bond. So we've got the premium on deferred serial bonds here. Right click, copy. We're going to put that in 016, right click and paste 1, 2, 3. Scrolling back over, we're going to say that that's going to be in Q16. So I'm going to make it a negative and point to that 16.8 and enter. So there we have that item. Last one is accrued interest. So we're looking for an expense related to interest on the long-term debt. So we're going to go down to the dark blue item and we're looking for an expense. Here we are with the interest on long-term debt. Expenses have debit balances and we're going to, in this case, actually put a negative expense in there, meaning we're going to credit the interest on long-term debt. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to scroll back up. We're going to paste it 1, 2, 3. And that amount will be, and we could take it from the data or we can plug in what we need, and that's going to be, of course, this 11,200. So now we have the credits here adding up to 828,000, which equals the debits. And if we highlight the entire thing, it's going to add up to 0. We can now post this out. So we're going to start with cash. We got cash up top, and cash is going to be here in the journal entry, here in the trial balance. We're going to post it to cell Z5. So I'm going to double click on Z5. We're going to go to the end of Z5 and say plus, point to the 828 and enter. Next item, we have deferred serial bonds payable. So here it is on the journal entry. Here it is on, let's see, deferred serial bonds payable is right here, a liability account. And we're going to make it go up, of course, by doing the same thing to it. Liabilities being credit balances, we will credit it. So we are in Z27 equals this 800,000 and enter. Then we're looking for this premium on deferred serial bonds payable, and that's here in the journal entry. It's here on the trial balance. We're going to record it to cell Z28 equals and point to this 16,800, bringing this 0 up to 16,800 in the credit direction. Then we're looking for this expense interest on long-term debt. If we scroll down, that's going to be the last item here in X43. We're going to go to the cell Z43 where we will post this and say that that will be equal to this 11,200, and that should put us back in balance. After recording that, we're going to, indicated of course by the green zeros. After doing that, we're going to scroll back to the data. I'm going to say that G11 has been completed, highlight those, right click there, and make it green. We are now on G12. G12 is going to be here, where we have payables recorded above were paid. So what we're trying to say here is the payables were recorded up here. There's the payables, and they have now been paid. So that's a fairly straightforward transaction. We're going to say, is cash affected? We're going to say, yep, cash is going to be paid to pay off the payables. So here's cash. It has a debit balance. We need to make it go down. Therefore, we're going to do the opposite thing to it, which in this case would be a credit. So I'm going to copy the cash. We're going to put that underneath because credits traditionally go on the bottom. The amount is going to be the same 50,000. So I could say negative of this number. That's what it's going to be. That's where the number is generated from. And then we're going to say that the debit is going to be vouchers payable. So vouchers payable here, liability account includes that 50,000. We're going to make it go down by doing the opposite thing to it, which in this case would be a debit. So I'm going to copy that. We're going to put that up top on the journal entry in G12, right clicking and paste it 1, 2, 3. So let's post this now. We're first looking for vouchers payable. Here it is on the journal entry. Here it is on the trial balance. We're posting it to cell Z21. Something is in it. Therefore, we're clicking on it, going to the end, plus, and then pointing to this 50,000, bringing that amount total down. Then we're looking for cash. Cash is the credit in this journal entry. Cash is there in the journal entry. It's here on the trial balance. We're going to post it to cell Z5. Z5 has something in it, so we're going to double click, go to the end of it, plus, then point to this 50,000. That will bring cash down. Okay, so we've completed G12. Going to highlight that, going to make it green. Next item is going to be G13, where we have progress payment on project. So we have a progress payment that is happening for the construction process, and therefore we're going to record that to the construction in process account, and we're going to put it this time to contracts payable rather than cash, and then we're going to pay it out later. So we're going to record it to the construction in progress. So we're going to say construction in progress, asset account, it's going up, therefore we're going to do the same thing to it, which in this case is another debit. So I'm going to copy that, we're going to put that on top, right-clicking, pasting, 1, 2, 3. The amount is going to be recorded in the debit area in cell P22 equals this 420. Then we're going to credit something for 420. And that amount is going to go to contracts payable. So contracts payable is down here in X24. And so I'm going to copy that. Going to paste it in O23, right click and paste it 1, 2, 3. Now we can record this out. We got construction in progress here on the journal entry. We're looking for construction in progress on the trial balance, which is there. We're going to post this to cell Z20 by double clicking on it, going to the end of it, plus pointing to this 420. That's a debit. This is a debit, bringing that debit balance up in the debit direction to 470. Then we have contracts payable. Here it is on the journal entry. And contracts payable is over here on the trial balance. We're going to record this to Z24 equals this 420. And that should bring this amount up in the credit direction to 420,000 and put us back in balance indicated by the green zeros. Scrolling back to the data, we're going to say that this G13 has now been completed, make it green, and move to G14. G14 says that we have billing for partially completed project, contract payment amount before retention, and then the retention amount. Okay, so we have billings happening, so we're going to have to record the contracts payable, which is going to go down. But before we do that, we could think about, is cash affected? We should probably think about that first. We're going to say, yeah, cash is affected and cash is going down. Therefore, we're going to do the opposite thing to it. Cash is a debit balance account. We're going to make it go down by crediting it, the opposite thing. I'm going to copy cash, going to skip 2 lines and put it down here on the bottom of the transaction, right-clicking and paste 1, 2, 3. So there's the cash that we will be recording. And I'm not going to put the amount, but we're just going to note that it's going to be a credit. The debit then is going to go to contracts payable. So the contracts payable is a liability account. It has the 420 in it. It's a credit. We need to make it go down by doing the opposite thing to it, which in this case is a debit. So I'm going to copy that. We're going to put that on top in O25, right click, paste 1, 2, 3. So there's the debit. That's going to be 420. So here's the 420. And then we're going to say that we have the contracts payable retention percent. So contracts payable retention is going to be that 2%. And therefore, we're going to scroll back over here and we have the contracts payable retained percentage. It's going to be a liability account. We're going to make it go up by doing the same thing to it, which in this case is a credit. Copying that, posting in O26, right click, pasting 1, 2, 3. Now the amount is going to be a negative. I'm going to say negative to make it a negative number, obviously. And then the 420 times this 2%. And that'll give us the 8,400. So then we're going to have the cash that will then be going out is going to be the 420,000 minus the 8,400, or 411,600. So I'm going to do that with our negative sum, our plug formula, which is the negative sum of the cells, and that should give us that plug of 411,600. If we highlight those, then we're at 420,000. If we highlight all of the cells of the journal entry, we are at 0, indicating that the debits equal the credits, and it's a balancing journal entry. So now we're going to post that, starting with the contracts payable. Contracts payable is here in the journal entry. Contracts payable is here in the trial balance. We're going to be posting it to cell Z24 by right-clicking, going to the end of it, plus, and then pointing to the 420,000, which will bring the amount down. Then we have the contracts payable retained percentage. Contracts payable retained percentage here on the trial balance. We're going to record that to Z25 by saying equals, scroll over to 8,400 and enter. Lastly, we have the cash for this journal entry. So cash is here on the journal entry. We're going to post it here on the trial balance in cell Z5 by double clicking, going to the end of it, plus scrolling down to this cash for 11,600 and enter. And the cash is now recorded. That should put us back in balance, indicated by the green zeros. And we can scroll back over to our data. G14 has now been recorded, making it green, and we can move to the next transaction of G15. G15 says final billing for completed contract. Okay, so we have the completed contract. We're entering the final billing. We're going to have recording to the construction in progress, the asset account, and the payable account contracts payable. So we've got, let's see, construction in progress has a debit balance. We need to make it go up by doing the same thing, which is another debit. So we're going to increase contracts payable, and the amount is going to be equal to this 428. Then we're going to credit something for the 428 as well, and that's going to be the contracts payable. The contracts payable being a liability account, we're going to make it go up by doing the same thing to it as what it is, which in this case is a credit. So I'm going to copy that, put it in 030, right click, and paste it 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to post this out. So contracts pay or construction in progress is here in the journal entry. It's here on the trial balance. We're going to record it to cell Z20 by double clicking, going to the end of it, plus, and then pointing to this 428,000 and enter. Then we have the contracts payable. It's a liability account here on the journal entry. It's contracts payable liability here on the trial balance. We are going to record it in Z24 by double clicking, going to the end of it, plus, pointing this 428,000 and enter. So that we have that, and that should put us back in balance, indicated by the green zeros. Scrolling back over, we're saying that G15 has now been completed. I'm going to make that green. And now we are on G16, and that's going to be sales tax collected. So sales tax collected, we can ask the question, is cash affected? We're going to say, yeah, sales tax was collected, and therefore cash is affected. Cash has a debit balance. We need to make it go up by doing the same thing to it, which in this case is another debit. So I'm going to copy the cash. We're going to scroll down to G16 in cell 032, right click, paste 1, 2, 3. So there's going to be the cash, and the amount of the cash will be equal to 180,000. And then we're going to credit 180,000. And that's going to be some form of revenue, because obviously the taxes are the form of revenue for the government organization. And so we're going to say revenue for taxes, sales taxes. So revenue is going to be down here in the temporary accounts, dark blue accounts. We're looking for a revenue related to sales tax. So here it is in X38, right click, copy. We're going to post that to 033, right click, and paste it 1, 2, 3. So there's our transaction. We're going to record this out, starting with cash. So here's cash in the journal entry. Here's cash in the trial balance. We're going to record this to Z5 by double clicking on Z5 because something's in it, going to the end of it and saying plus, scrolling down and recording this 180 and enter. Next item we have is the general revenue, taxes, and the sales tax. So that's going to be a credit. So we have general revenue, taxes, sales taxes is going to be here in Z37, which will be equal to the 180,000 and enter. So that'll be it for G16. So I'm going to scroll back over and we're going to say that G16 has been completed, highlighting it and making it green. And we are now on G17. Next item, G17, where we have payment for final billing in the amount of 428. And then we have the retention percentage at that 2%. So again, we could in this one ask, is cash affected? We're going to say, yeah, there's a payment happening, so I'm assuming cash is affected. So we're going to copy cash, scroll back down, and I'm going to skip a couple lines to put cash on the bottom because we need to credit cash, and credits normally go on the bottom. Therefore, I'm going to put it in 037, right-clicking and pasting 123. Now, we don't know the amount quite yet, so let's record the rest of this, and then we know that the cash will then be credited, and we'll get that amount at that time. So we've got the amount of 428, so that's going to be going from the contracts payable. So here's contracts payable. We're owing money 428 with the credit balance. We need to make it go down. Therefore, we're doing the opposite thing to it. So I'm going to copy that, and we are going to put that on top in the debit section, contracts payable, and the amount is in P35 equal to this 428 and enter. Then we're going to record the retention amount, and therefore that will be in the retention account in contracts payable retained percentage. Again, a liability in this case, and in this case, we're going to make it go up. The retained percentage will be going up. Therefore, we're going to credit this amount. So I'm going to copy that. We're going to right click in 036 and paste it. That amount is going to be a negative. So I'm going to start our formula with a negative, pointing to this 428 times the 2%. So that is obviously 428,000 times 0.02 or 2%. And then we want it to be a negative, so that will give us the 8,560. Then we have the difference of the 428,000 minus the 8,560 will give us the 419,440. That's the plug we need. That's the cash will be paid. And we will do that, I will do it at least, with the plug formula, which is a negative sum of these four cells. It'll take those cells, flip the sign, giving us that 419,440. That's the cash that will go out. Adding up the credits gives us 428 equal to the debits. If we highlight all of it, we can see that it adds up to 0, indicating that the journal entry is in balance. So then we're going to go to contracts payable and this 428. So contracts payable is a liability account. Here it is on the journal entry. Here it is on the trial balance. We're going to go to cell Z, what is this? Z24. Something's in it, double click on it, go to the end of it, and plus. And then we're pointing to that 428,000 debit and enter, and that should go down to 0 like so. Then we have the contracts payable retained percentage. That's going to be a liability account. So we've got the contract payable retained percentage right here, and we're going to record that in Z25. So something's in it, therefore we'll double click on it, go to the end of it, and say plus, and then point to that 8560, enter, bringing the balance up to 16,960. Then we have the cash that we're going to record out. Here it is on the journal entry. Here it is on the trial balance. We're going to record it in cell Z5, double click, go to the end of it, plus, scroll back down, we're pointing to that 419,440 and enter. So there's that item, bringing the cash down, and that should complete the G17, should put us back in balance, indicated by the green zeros down here. Going to scroll back to the data, we're going to say G17 has been completed. Let's highlight that, make it green, showing that it has been completed. We will then move to G18. So here's G18. G18, we're going to record the pay our retention percentage and the infrastructure. So these are going to be two items that we'll record. I'm going to record them with two separate journal entries. And if we're paying the retention amount, that's indicated by a payable. So we have the payable over here, contract payable retention. It has the 16,960 in it. We need to make that go down to 0. So that's a credit. We're going to do the opposite thing to it, which in this case is a debit. In 039, right click, paste it, 123. The amount will be this 16,960. We're going to credit something for the same amount, 16,960. That, of course, will be cash. So we're going to say cash is up here. Cash has a debit balance. We're going to make it go down by doing the opposite thing to it, which in this case is a credit. Scrolling back down, there's the debit, there's the credit. Let's record this one first and then move to the second piece of G18. So we're going to say here's contracts payable retained percentage. We're going to record that to the amount in the trial balance right here. Contracts payable retained percentage. We are in cell Z25. Double click, go to the end of it, plus, and then point to this 16,960 and enter. We then have the cash here on the credit side. We have the cash here on the trial balance. We're going to record this to Z5 by double clicking, going to the end of it, plus scrolling back down. This is the amount we need, 16,960, and enter. That should put us back in balance. So we're back in balance down here, and that looks correct. So now we're going to do the second piece of that, which was the infrastructure. So infrastructure, we're going to record the infrastructure, and that's going to be part of the construction in progress. So in essence, what's happening is we're pulling this out of the construction in progress, and we're putting it into the fixed asset of infrastructure. So we're saying it's going from construction in process and assets, has a debit balance, we need to make it go down, taking it out of there and putting it into the other asset account of infrastructure, and it has a debit balance, and we're going to make it go up with a debit. So we're going to say that copy the infrastructure, come back down, we're going to say in O42, right click, paste 1, 2, 3, and then we have the construction in progress, copying that, scrolling back down, that's going to be the credit in O43, pasting it 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to take the amount, and the amount is going to be equal to this 898,000. All right, that's the debit. We're also going to credit 898,000, and then we can record this. So infrastructure, we're going to scroll back up. It's up here in the trial balance. We're recording this piece of the journal entry. We're recording it to this account, and we're going to record it to this cell in Z14 by saying equals and pointing to this 898,000. So we have that. Then we're going to record the construction in progress. So here it is on the journal entry. Construction in progress is here on the trial balance. We will be recording this to Z20 by double clicking, going to the end, plus scrolling back down. We're at 898 and enter. So there we have that, and it brings construction in progress down, moving it from there to the completed fixed asset of infrastructure. That puts us back in balance, indicated by the green zeros. Scrolling back over to the data, we're going to say that G18 has now been completed. So we're going to highlight that, make it green, and we're going to move to G19. So G19 is going to be equal to this item, G19. And we're going to say interest payment on the bonds. We've got the expense portion and the premium. So we're going to make payments on the bond, or interest payments at least, and we can see that we know that then. Asking the question, is cash affected? We're going to say, yes, cash is affected because we're going to be making interest payments. So cash has a debit balance. We need to make it go down. So we're going to do the opposite thing to it, which in this case would be a credit. Copying cash, scrolling down. Here's the first line of the journal entry. We need to skip a couple lines, put the credit on the bottom as is typically customary to do for the credits to go on the bottom. I'm not going to put the amount yet. Let's just note that it's going to be a credit, and then take a look at the rest of this. We have interest payable on bonds, and then the premium. So we're going to put the interest payable down here to the interest expense. So here's interest expense, and going to copy this. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put this over in the top of the cell. Right click, paste it 1, 2, 3, and the amount will be equal to this 15,766. We then have the premium. So the premium here, and that's going to go to the premium on deferred serial bonds. I'm going to scroll back over here, and I'm looking for the premium on deferred serial bonds. Here it is. We're going to right click on that, copy that, scroll back down, right click, and paste it 1, 2, 3. The amount's going to be this 234. It's going to actually be a debit because a premium has a credit balance, and we need to make it go down over the life of the bond. Therefore, we're going to debit this 234, and then we know what the credit's going to be. I'm going to move the cash up a cell by copying and pasting it 1, 2, 3. We want it right there. And the amount is going to be the adding of these two, the 15,766 plus the 234. I'm going to do that with a negative sum of these items. That gives us the 16,000. Now, if we record this out, then we're going to say the expense on interest and long-term debt. Here it is in the journal entry. Here it is on the trial balance. going to double click on this, go to the end of it and say plus, and then record this 15,766 and enter. So now we're at expense of 4,566. Then we're going to record the premium on deferred serial bonds. So scrolling up, we've got the premium on deferred serial bonds here. Double click on that, go to the end of it, plus, and we're going to make that go down by doing the opposite thing to it by this 234. So there we have that. And then we've got the cash. So here's the cash. We're going to record that, of course, to cash up top. Here it is on the trial balance. We're going to record it to cell Z5 by right-clicking, going to the end of it, plus, scrolling back down. We want this 16,000 and enter. So there's that item. If we scroll down, we're saying that we're back in balance indicated by the green zeros. That's going to be it for this one. I believe there's just a couple more transactions we'll take a look at next time, and then we'll move on to the creation of the financial statements for the government-wide accounts.